Bernie Sanders is an idiot. He's a deadbeat hypocrite who feeds on the entitlement of our generation. I know just that statement alone will anger the neckbeards and result in a bunch of angry comments from people who unironically dye their hair and wave the communist flag. But honestly, that's okay. People can be mad at me for criticizing the socialist grandpa, because Bernie Sanders' proposals are laughably wrong and do not hold up under scrutiny. Even more so, he's a hypocrite who's benefited off the capitalist system he vows to destroy. So ladies and gentlemen, grab your rationed popcorn, step out of the breadline, and listen up, because today I'm explaining why Bernie Sanders is a total idiot. But first, thank you to Dashlane for sponsoring this video. I recently found this mobile app called Dashlane, and I've got to be honest, it's seriously fantastic. It's a simple way to store and fill passwords and personal information. Be honest for a second, how many online accounts do you think you have? 10? 50? Maybe 100? Let's go ahead and find out how many accounts I have. I simply open the app and tap on Inbox Scan. Dashlane quickly searches my entire inbox to find any accounts I may have created. Holy crap. Look at how many accounts I have. This is seriously insane. Next, Dashlane can be accessed from my computer, and all the accounts found sync with the desktop application. Now when I go to log into my favorite websites, Dashlane autofills my username and password, so you never have to type a password again. Above everything else, Dashlane also includes a VPN for all your devices. Dashlane is cheaper than most VPNs and offers a bunch of other features to keep you safe online. Ultimately, Dashlane is the only tool you need for online security that will actively keep you safer online with password protections and a VPN, so you just don't have to worry about it. So what are you waiting for? Head over to dashlane.com/hunter to get your free trial of Dashlane Premium for 30 days today. So Bernie Sanders is an idiotic lunatic. Let's dive into this.
I think you think I'm being overreactive here.
Bernie Sanders was born on September 8th, 1941 in New York. Growing up in Brooklyn, he witnessed firsthand his lower middle class parents struggle financially. He went to Brooklyn College, later earning a bachelor's degree in political science from the University of Chicago in 1964. Sanders later moved to Vermont, where he worked as a union carpenter and a freelance journalist. He was active in the anti-Vietnam War movement, which led him towards a life in politics. He made multiple bids for governor of Vermont in 1972, 1976, and 1986, failing each time. He also ran for the US Senate in 1972 and 1974. Finally, in 1990, Bernie Sanders was elected to the House of Representatives. At this point, Sanders was open about being a democratic socialist, and he caucused with the Democrats. In 2006, Sanders ran for US Senate again and won. And finally, in 2015, he entered the race for the presidential election. He lost the nomination to Hillary Clinton, who later lost to Trump. Just want to remind everyone. And finally, in 2019, Bernie Sanders is running for president once again.
I think you think I'm being overreactive here.
Bernie Sanders is loud and proud about being a democratic socialist. So much so, he's even claimed his brand of socialism is a pathway to beating Trump. On top of his open support for socialist policies, he's also very vocal about his disdain for the rich. In 2015, Sanders tweeted about the income gap between the very rich and the very poor being the widest since the 1920s, when Sanders was almost a teenager. Sanders tries very hard to paint himself as the champion of the middle class, the guy who cares about the poor. Like a modern-day Robin Hood, he loves this moral approach, tweeting, "We are living in a nation which worships wealth rather than caring for the poor. I don't think that this is the nation we should be living in." That sounds nice and all, but it's pretty damn rich coming from Bernie Sanders. the loud and proud socialist who's benefited off capitalism, amassing a $2.5 million fortune. Ironically enough, a large part of his wealth came from his 2016 book about socialism. Not only has Bernie amassed a fortune after spouting socialist rhetoric, he also owns 3 homes, his latest being a lakefront home worth nearly $600,000. How many yachts do billionaires need? How many cars do they need? Give us a break. You can't have it all. Yeah, Bernie. And how many houses do you need? Stop pretending to be the poor man's Santa Claus. You're just making a fool of yourself. Vanity Fair says, Bernie Sanders now has one thing in common with the millionaires and billionaires and other one percenters he so frequently attacked on the campaign trail. He now owns his very own summer home. Sanders was born to an immigrant, struggled financially at the bottom for most of his life, and made it nearly to the top. It's really quite incredible because Sanders is a direct result of the capitalist system he vigorously works against. According to Boston-based Democratic strategist Mary Ann Marsh, Sanders became the very thing he criticized others for becoming, and at the same time didn't fix any of the problems he's been railing about that got him to this point. Bernie Sanders, the socialist lunatic who hates the rich, has become the very thing he's sworn to destroy. He's a railing hypocrite, and even college students, who Sanders desperately tries to appeal to, call him a hypocrite after learning about his wealth. Bernie's hypocrisy was revealed once again when his unionized campaign revolted against him. One of Bernie Sanders' biggest promises is a $15 minimum wage. Now, of course, this is ridiculous for a lot of reasons, one of them being if you raise the minimum wage, companies will be forced to either cut hours or raise prices, essentially making this higher minimum wage useless. Bernie Boy learned this the hard way when his unionized campaign revolted over only being paid $13 an hour. So to try and mend this dispute, Sanders announced that he would, wait for it, cut hours so he could pay his staff $15 an hour. This has been our point from the beginning as to why $15 minimum wage will not work. This hilarious blunder was later resolved, but it gets worse. When the Sanders campaign offered to raise salaries to that level, the union rejected the offer. Why, you might ask? Because the raise would have elevated field staff to a pay level responsible for paying more of their own healthcare costs. It turns out that Sanders pays only 85% of healthcare premiums for campaign staff, making more than $36,000, despite campaigning on a promise of free healthcare for all, with no premiums, no deductibles, no co-payments, and no out-of-pocket expenses. So it looks to me like Bernie Sanders is not only a hypocritical wealthy socialist, but he can hardly make his own campaign promises come true for his staff. So I have to ask, how on earth does Bernie Boy plan on making this crap a reality for the entire country?
I think you think I'm being overreactive here.
Bernie Sanders makes a lot of promises that sound wonderful and really appeal to the entitlement of our youth. But when scrutinized, they simply fall apart. Aside from his stance on healthcare being a human right, which we all know is completely false, Sanders has also admitted that he wants to provide healthcare for illegal immigrants.
We are going to end that and create a Medicare for all healthcare system.
Senator, would you include the 11 million undocumented immigrants in that?
Absolutely. When I talk about healthcare being a human right, last time I heard that undocumented people are human beings as well.
Thank you.
There are so many things wrong with this stance, I'm not even sure where to start. First and foremost, we have a problem with illegal immigration, and this is the last thing we should be offering. Listen up, because here's how we solve the illegal immigration problem. First, we continue cracking down on those who enter illegally. Illegal immigration is against the law, and those who break this law should be prosecuted. Secondly, we need to reform the current legal immigration system. Right now, it's far too long and far too strenuous. America is, without a doubt, the best country, and crossing the border illegally should not be easier than applying for citizenship legally. Finally, we need to stop rewarding illegal immigrants like Bernie plans on doing. It's pathetic that Sanders wants to provide healthcare for all 11 million illegal immigrants. This is a total slap in the face to those who actually came to this country legally. Policies like the one Bernie is proposing only encourages more illegal immigration. Why would you go through the long, strenuous process of coming here legally if you can just hop the fence and get free healthcare? Another big promise of Bernie Sanders is to cancel all student loan debt. Senator Bernie Sanders on Monday proposed canceling all $1.6 trillion of outstanding student loan debt in the United States, one-upping a rival for the Democratic presidential nomination, Senator Elizabeth Warren, who has proposed canceling $640 billion of the debt. I hate hearing Democrats rattle on about this nonsense that only entitled losers find appealing. It's not daddy government's job to clean up after the young adults who willfully took out a loan to get through college. This is yet another proposal that just doesn't hold up. Again, this might sound nice, but it certainly would not cancel all future student loan debt. Sanders has proposed making all undergraduate programs at public colleges and universities free. That would reduce the need for borrowing, but it would not eliminate future student debt. Not even close. According to the Department of Education, only 45% of student loans are used to attend public colleges and universities, presumably because tuition at those schools is already lower than in the private sector. A lot of the student loan debt is acquired from attending private or graduate schools. Resetting all student loan debt sounds nice, but like socialism, it just doesn't work. The Sanders plan controls the cost of public undergraduate education by setting tuition to zero and keeping it there. So financing public higher education would become a matter of the federal government and states deciding how much they want to spend on higher learning. The universities would have no pricing power because there would be no prices. Graduate programs, by contrast, would still be mostly free to charge whatever they like, as is the case today. With the precedent of loan forgiveness established, graduate programs could be tempted to charge even more since students might never have to pay back their loans. Even a spokesman for Bernie Sanders admitted that the plan would not make graduate or professional school free or regulate private universities. That means the day after Senator Sanders hits the reset button, the national student debt odometer would begin rapidly spinning again. Will those later debts be forgiven too? If not, the plan would create a generation of student loan lottery winners, with losers on either side. People who had already paid back their loans would get nothing. People with future loans would get nothing. People with debt on the day the legislation was enacted would be rewarded. Pretty funny that Sanders promotes the idea that our economy rewards people like the lottery, yet his asinine proposal to wipe away all student loan debt would do the same. Finally, we come to Sanders' latest proposal. Bernie Sanders has released a new plan for combating climate change that'll cost, just a measly $16.3 trillion. Whether you believe in climate change or not, this is honestly aside the point. This is just an expensive pipe dream. The plan generates money from various sources, including $6.4 trillion in revenue from selling energy via power marketing authorities, $2.3 trillion from income taxes from the new jobs created under the plan, and $1.2 trillion from reducing military expenses related to protecting oil shipping routes. I want to focus specifically on the $2.3 trillion the plan claims would be made from all the new jobs. Just saying, if you want people to care about climate change, forcing them to fund your expensive efforts may not be the best path to take. This will, without a doubt, greatly raise taxes. And this isn't really that surprising. We already know that Bernie Sanders has been public about raising taxes even on the middle class.
Senator Sanders, I'll give you 10 seconds just to answer the very direct question. Will you raise taxes for the middle class in the Sanders administration?
People who have health care under Medicare for All will have no premiums, no deductibles, no co-payments, no out-of-pocket expenses. Yes, they will pay more in taxes, but less in health care for what they get.
Already, how anyone can support the guy openly talking about raising our taxes is beside me, but this Green New Deal would raise the taxes even more. There's an estimated 140.9 million taxpayers in this country. Divide 2.3 trillion by 140.9 million, and you get an average of $16,323 in additional taxes per capita. This is ridiculous, expensive, and it only costs the American worker more. I understand that climate change is an important issue to a lot of Americans, but taxing the ever-living daylights out of us hard-working Americans is not the right way to go about this. Bernie Sanders makes a lot of big, bold promises, which sound nice, but when you take a deeper look, they're simply the unsubstantiated ramblings of a hypocritical grandpa in desperate need of an aspirin. Bernie Sanders is a hypocrite who can barely make his campaign promises a reality for his own staff. He's benefited off the capitalist system he claims to be against, and his policies simply don't hold up under basic arithmetic. Bernie Sanders is a total idiot.